Shalom. Welcome to Language of the Prophets series, Aliyah Yomi, the Aliyah of the day, the daily Aliyah, where we do every single Hebrew word in the original text, word by word walkthrough. We read it, we translate it, sometimes we sing it, and occasionally discuss comments from Chazal. Today, in Torah portion Toldot, is the third Aliyah. So we are getting through things. It's not a very long one, so you should be able to make it through this one pretty briskly. The third Aliyah can be found in Bereshit, chapter 26, verse 13, through chapter 26, verse 22. And let's get started with verse Yod Gimel, that's 13. Vayigdal ha'ish, vayelech haloch vegadel ad ki gadal me'od. I didn't stop at the clause marker because it's just two words. The first clause just says Vayigdal ha'ish. So gadal is to become great, right, or to be great, if we treat it statively. And a yigdal, well, you should know this from the Siddur if you pray the Siddur. Yigdal Elohim Chai v'yishtabach. Right. So yigdal means he will be great. In biblical Hebrew, it also means he is, right, with a continuing idea. But because we have a vav conversive situation here, whoops, I thought the cursor was somewhere else. Anyway, that's supposed to be around the vav. I'm laughing at my own antics there. All right, pen, let's go to yellow, or orange. So the vav conversive makes the time the opposite. So vayigdal means and he became great. Who? The subject, ha'ish, the man. Vayelech, haloch, this is where it gets a bit tricky here. So literally, I'll do literally first, and then I'll explain the idiom. So yelech, from halach, haloch. Okay, so, and he went, going. Haloch is something like going. This is an infinitive absolute. And these are used to emphasize the action of the verb, right? So on the face surface, this looks like it's saying he continuously went, right? So to make it make sense in English, it has to sound a bit better. So we say something like, he kept on going, right? He kept on, halach is used in this way, halach. He kept on, the gadel, getting greater, ad until ki gadal me'od, until the point where he was gadal me'od, very great, right? So he's accumulating wealth here is what's happening. He's accumulating his footprint on the land is growing with avodah, livestock, and servants, his household help, and with his mikneh and all the stuff that he has. It's just growing and growing and growing. That's what that means there. Yod Dalet 14. Vayhi lo mikneh tzon umikneh vakal va'avudah. Va'avudah. We'll come back to that word in a second. Rabbah. All right. Yehi means he will be, or he will become. The vav consecutive makes it, and he was. And he was, or he became, lo to him. So, and there was to him, like he had, mikneh tzon, right? Herds of sheep, umikneh vakar, and herds of bovids. Like the bakar can be an ox, even though we have a separate word for that, aleph. But it can also be like cattle, right? Any kind of bovid. Va'avudah rabbah. Okay, so here is a noun followed by its adjective, as it should be. So you can see they're both feminine, singular, indefinite, right? Avudah rabbah. Now what's weird is that this word avudah, there's some speculation on really what's going on with this, like what it means. Even the lexicons, they kind of dance around it. The root we know, of course, avad, to serve, right? And we know avodah with an O instead of an U, right? But here we have the kibbutz, so it's a U. Avudah. We know avodah is like labor, work. So avodah is something like, it seems to be the like his workforce, right? Like the labor force of his household. So these could be both paid and unpaid servants, right? Something like that. But let's go through. Let's see what Chazal have to say about it. So Rashi says that avodah refers to a task. Avodah, sorry, but avuda refers to a whole set of tasks, right? So he had like a lot that's going on in his household, right? And then Rabbah means great, right? So he's trying to get to the meaning from the Rashbam says we could treat this word, knowing that it's related to avodah and labor, that is of the specific type around agricultural labor, right? So again, so it could be the help, the farm help specifically, or it could even include the beast of burden as well, according to the Rashbam. Ibn Ezra says that in this particular case, he thinks that it's probably something like of servants, right? Like relating to his servants. Like I was saying, the house help, right? Something like that. And then, let's see, what else? I'm trying to think. Okay, so Sforno interprets this as actual, the land that he was able to have his livestock and he was able to grow the Me'ah Sha'arim like we had in yesterday's Aliyah, all the stuff. So you see there's many opinions here. This might be, for those of you who do your own teachings or Dvar Torah or something like that, this might be a point that would be interesting to investigate and do some research on, because it's not a common word in Tanachit. Okay? Vaikanu oto Pelishtim. Yeah, I think it has to do with the actual hired hands. It kind of fits the, we've got different types of animals, and then he's got the hired hands that you need to even take care of them, right? And what follows in the next clause, Vaikanu oto Pelishtim, and it's Vaikanu. Both schwas are silent because they're ending the syllable, right? Ending the syllable with short vowels in them. Vaikanu. Okay? And the Philistines were jealous of him. They were jealous of him. Okay, verse 15. The Chol haberot asher chafaru avdei aviv b'mei Avraham aviv. And all of the be'er is a well, right? There's another word for a well. Like you've seen, we had ayin before, right? Like an eye is a spring, something like this. Well, a be'er is specifically a well. So, I'll probably say so for this vav. So, all of the wells which chafaru avdei aviv. Okay, so here we have a construct chain with the avdei aviv, and that's the subject of the verb. Okay, so avdei is the construct masculine plural form from avadim. I don't know if any of you know the song. It's a Pesach song. Avadim hayinu hayinu. Avadim hayinu hayinu. We were slaves. We were. So anyway, so avdei makes it construct, so it's servants or slaves of aviv. So because it's got vav at the end of av here, it tells us it's his father, right? And so it's now definite. So the whole chain is definite, so we must say the. So the servants of his father, Chatharu, they dug. This can also mean to investigate, right? Like to search out something. Like you're digging, right? Like we use it this way in English as well. Bimei Avraham. And we have another construct chain. Yamei Avraham. Aviv. Oh, sorry, Aviv is not part of the chain. Just Bimei Avraham. Okay, so Yamei is from Yamim, meaning days, construct plural, of Avraham, who's definite. So in the days of Avraham. And then we get like our positive. Who's Avraham? Aviv, his father. Sit mum pelishtim, v'maleum afar. Very nasty thing to do. So, sit mum, this is, satam is the verb. And it's something like to stop up, to cover up. Yeah. It implies to fill up if you're talking about a hole, right? It can also mean like to keep something closed, to shut it, right? To obstruct it. all of those things. And it's interesting enough. Sometimes it's even used to mean like disguise, like metaphorically, right? Like I guess you're stopping up the truth. You're covering up the truth of who you are, right? You're disguising yourself. And it's kind of an odd form if you're not used to seeing it this way. So sitmu, this is a PL binyan, right? It's very intense. So the verbal form itself is actually sitmu. But then we have the pronominal suffix. Remember, learn these things if you guys haven't learned them yet. Mem means them, right? It's masculine, plural, third person, okay? Referring back to what? The they stop them up, okay? Who's the subject? Philistine, the Philistines. And they malay, like we know from the Siddur Malay Chesed. We're talking about Hashem. He's full of loving kindness, full of clan loyalty. And we have another pronominal suffix referring back to the wells. They stuff them up and they filled them up. And then you have to use this instrumentally with afar, right? Afar is dust, but it can be dirt or mud in other contexts too. Okay, 16. Vayoma Avimelech el Yitzchak. Then Avimelech said to Yitzchak, Lehech mimanu yatzamta mimenu me'od. Lech, so you should know this from Lech Lecha, from Abraham, right? From Avram back then. Go. So this is the imperative form from halach. The hey, although Ibn Ezra might say from yalach. Okay, I think it's halach. The hay fell away. Yeah. I mentioned that Ibn Ezra disagrees with the opinion that I have on this because, he's worth listening to. I'm not saying like I'm better than Ibn Ezra or anything, but he says that hay never falls away from this verb. But the thing is, since his time, we have other Hebrew writings like the Dead Sea Scrolls and stuff like that, and we do actually see a preformative hay can fall away. So with the information he had access to, his argument made sense, right? But we live in the future, and there's more linguistic support. So in case you guys misunderstand me to think that like what Ibn Ezra know, that's not the perspective, okay? Just sharing based on we are fortunate to live in a time with more knowledge available. But it could be yalach, it still could be, I mean there's no problem with that. Okay. Me imanu. So go may. Why is this a may here? Okay. So this would have been mean, right? And if you want to prefix, if you want to connect this to a word, mean, the noon from the mean becomes a dot in the next letter, a dagash, right? He assimilates. Like in legal in English becomes illegal. The noon and the n goes away and you get two L's. Remember this example? In meaning not, from Latin, plus legal, right? Meaning not legal. But we don't say in Louis, not anymore. Now instead, we say illegal. So I, and our English noon, which is an N, assimilated with the L, okay? And I'm just going to put a dagash in the English letter if we were to use dagashim, because the strong dagash tells you there are two of those letters. Again, sorry, I'm not left-handed, but I'm drawing this with my left hand on the touchpad of a laptop. So imagine there's a dagash here, right? In English, you could do it that way. All right, a little dot, saying there's two L's. Same thing. So, but in this case, ayin is a type of letter that cannot be doubled, right? If you think about how ayin used to be pronounced, even though today with Israeli pronunciation, Sephardic Israeli pronunciation, we don't pronounce it, but in ancient times, in biblical times, ayin was very much alive, and it was like a oh 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 oh. Now imagine, how do you double that? You don't double that sound, right? So even then they didn't double it. So, and now how much more so we don't double it because we don't even say it, right? So what happens in sounds that cannot be doubled, the dagesh comes down, and again this would have been a hirik. You see the little dot? Hirik is a short vowel, right? That should be a single dot, okay? And instead he doubles it to a tsere. You see there's two dots? That is a long vowel. This is called compensatory lengthening for you grammar nuts. If not, as long as you can recognize it, it's okay. You don't have to know all these rules. As long as when you see the text, you can read and understand, but that's what's happening, okay? That's what's going on. Me'im, okay, so im means with, and then the nu at the end This is a pronominal suffix for us. See, you learn those suffixes, it's going to be a great help in cracking what's happening. So me'imano, so lech me'imano, go away from us. Ki atzamta mimenu me'od. For you, atzam, this is interesting. We have a noun, etzem. Etzem. Etzem means bone, right? So all his atzmot were not broken, right? I can count all what is it? I think it's atzmai, something like that. I have to look at Psalm and see Psalm 24. But so the thing is, um, yeah. So in this, so from this we get the idea to become strong, right? Like I guess the idea is you're like a bone, you're bony, right? This is the same verb, the same word that's used by Pharaoh when it says there arose a Pharaoh who did not know Yosef, and then and he says, look, the people are numerous and they're stronger than us, etc., etc. So it has the idea of being like strong, right? Like a bone, right? So ki atamta, for you have become strong. And then literally it says mimenu. This is just a word you have to learn. Mimenu means from us, right? And you can see how this word came into being. Me, like I showed you here, and the noon assimilated. And mem can take a dagesh. She can double. So there's a yod there. I mean, yod. There's a strong dagesh there. Dagesh chazak, dagesh forte. So mim menu is how that would have originally been. Even though we soften it some now. Yeah? Okay. Me'od, very much so. Now, this is how you express in Hebrew it's called the mem of comparison. It's how you express the idea of the comparative, right? In English, we just put an er in the word most of the time, right? So I could say strong, and if I want to say more strong than someone else, you say stronger, right? You don't say more strong, stronger, right? We put the er. That's the comparative. The way Hebrew does this is it says you are whatever from the other thing, right? So if I want to say you are bigger than me, I could say, talking to man, gadol ata mimeni, right? Literally, you are big from me. That's just how they express it. Okay, so for you have become stronger than us, me'od, much stronger than us. Yeah, and Nachmanides comments that really Avimelech is saying, look, even me, I'm a melech, and I do not have the kind of wealth on the scale of yours. It's embarrassing for us. You have even a larger abudah, larger household than the king does. Of course, this is not in actual Tanakh. This is a traditional understanding, right? And Kimchi comments that he's concerned, actually, the king's concerned that even though the king has ordered his people not to molest Yitzchak, he's saying, look, by the way, if I said Yaakov by accident, sometimes I do that. My brain is thinking about something else, and sometimes names will get messed up, so just don't. If it seems weird, then you say, okay, Yirmeyah said the wrong word there, okay? I do this with Esau and Yishmael also, and I do it with Yitzchak and Yaakov for some reason. Of course, I know who they are and who's the father, but it just happens. So sorry about that in advance if I do that while I'm teaching. So so Kimchi says that Avimelech is actually concerned about Yitzchak. He's probably heard his people grumbling. He knows that they're jealous of him, like the text tells us already. The Philistines were jealous of him, right? Became jealous of him, and he's concerned that because of his size, that they might decide to attack him, even though the king had warned them. It's kind of a nice additional there. Okay, so let's continue on. Verse Yod Zayin, that's 17. Vayelach misham Yitzchak. So, you could say and, but I like better so in this case. So, Yitzchak is the subject. He's the one doing the halaching. So, Yitzchak went misham. So, again, we mentioned mean over here. Mem, the little dot chirik and nun. Same thing happening. Here's our mem. The nun assimilates. That's why there's the dot and the sheen. Okay? Misham. From there. Vayichan, the nachal gerar, vayeshiv sham. Okay. And this is chana, the hay has fallen away. He made camp at nachal gerar. So we have another construct chain here. So the word that's in the construct is nachal, okay, nachal, and the absolute word is gerar, all right? So nachal is a wadi, right? It's a wadi. This is different from a nahar. Nahar is a river, but a nachal is a wadi, right? So it's one of these, sometimes it's nothing and stones, and sometimes it's filled with water and flowing. That's what a wadi is, in case you've never been to the Middle East or other deserts. Okay, a stony brook, some might call it, right? Nachal. Okay, and so we say in the wadi Gerar, right, or of Gerar, right, the one that's associated with Gerar, close to the town of Gerar. All right, so the idea is he's leaving Gerar, right? He doesn't want to be too close to them. Vayeshiv Sham, and he yashav, right, is to dwell or to sit literally, and he dwelled there. Incidentally, that's why the mitzvah on the holiday of Sukkot is that you have to at least eat a meal. It's good to sleep, it's to actually live in the sukkah if you can, but if you can't, the mitzvah is fulfilled by at least sitting down and having a meal, because the word yashav, it means either thing, to sit or to dwell. All right. Verse Yodchet, that's 18. Hold on, where are we? Okay. Vayashav Yitzchak, vayachpor et be'erot hamayim, asher chaferuhu bimei Avraham aviv, vaysatmum pelishtim acharei mot Avraham. Right? So Yitzchak, Vayashiv Yitzchak. So Yitzchak settled down, so he dwelled, and Yachpor means he will dig. So here we have a vav consecutive. So it's and he dug, right? And he dug. Et, our definite direct object marker, marking what he's digging. Be'erot hamayim. Okay, so here we have another construct chain. Okay. So literally means the water wells, right? Be'erot means wells of in the construct, and hamayim is the water. I'm not sure if you have other types of wells other than water wells, but so this might be an interesting part of the text to focus in on, to try to dig for some deeper meaning. Like, why does the text make sure to tell us water wells? Is there another kind of well in the ancient world that was in existence? I don't think I've ever seen, in the Torah at least, it used in another way. The assumption is always that they're wells, right? So, I mean, even Be'er Sheva, the name, right? Be'er Sheva, it's 7 wells, right? That's why it had the name. So it doesn't say, Be'er Sheva Hamayim, right? So maybe there's some gematria, and I don't lean on gematria a lot, but sometimes I think the text is hinting, or there's some other thing happening, why it makes sure to explicitly call out Hamayim here. Asher Chafaru, which Chafaru, they dug, Bimei Avraham Aviv. Again, we have construct here. Yemei, the days of Avraham. In the days of Avraham, Aviv, his father. By Satmum, but they covered up them, right? Meaning the wells. They covered them up. Who? The Pelishtim. That's the subject. Pelishtim. Acharei, after Mot Avraham, after Avraham died. Yeah, not a nice thing. And yeah, and it's interesting. Nachmanides, he goes into kind of a long discussion about Yitzchak digging new wells and why it was important to actually find Mayim Chaim, right, spring water, because the claim, I'm not sure where Nachmanides gets this from. There must be a midrash or something that talks about it, but he talks about how the people were complaining that his wells were just taking water from the wadi, right? Because remember, it said he was close to the Wadi Gerar. And so they're complaining right now. They're complaining, look, they've complained, your water, the text doesn't say, it explains why. The water you're taking, it's reducing the water available to us, right? Although there's some other teaching that says that they were worried that if there was an invasion, having all these extra wells available would support an invading army, right? So it's kind of like how, Stalin's strategy in World War II was to burn down everything so the Germans could use anything that was there, right? And so this kind of like related to that, like don't let there be infrastructure for supporting an army. Could be. It's interesting to think through why they'd be complaining and being such jerks. Okay, continuing on. Vayikra lahen shemot kashemot asher kara lahen aviv. And he called them the names as the names how or when kara lahen Aviv, his father, this is the subject, his father, That's the subject. Kara, the subject of Kara. His father called them, literally called to them, right? Okay. And that was verse 18. And I made it in blue because I was thinking it might be interesting to, again, this might be another point of digging for your own drashot, your own sermons, or Dvar Torah, or whatever you're going to do, or drash. Um, there's something about the names here, right? There's something about the names. Like, I think bringing things back to how they were before wicked people interfered with something, right? I think the names can be symbolic of more like, remember, shame, it does mean name, but it also means like fame. I mean, like when we talk about, when Hashem says, my name will be known among the nations, etc., it's not saying that they'll know Yod-He, Waw-He, right? Those 4 letters. That's ludicrous. When he talks about my name, what he means is, most of the time, he means my fame, who I am, right? My mighty work, bringing the people through the Yam Suf, my mighty works of bringing darkness on the land of Egypt, right? His fame is what he leans on, even when he gives the Aseret Debarot. He says who he is, right? I am Hashem, your God. Who did what? What's my fame? What's my shame? I brought you out of the land of Egypt from the house of bondage, right? So I think there might be something worth digging here for anybody who's, a teacher or preparing, or even if you have like a little Bible study group, you're doing stuff together, maybe think through this for a while. I feel there's something there. I should have checked the Midrash Agada to see. Sometimes that's a nice place to look. I'm sorry, I don't know where to find the English version of that. Otherwise, I would refer you to it. You can check Sefaria. They have it in Hebrew over there. But yeah, if anybody knows of a nice English one, maybe post in the comments so others can look there as well. All right. Verse Yod Tet, that's 19. Vayachpuru avdei Yitzchak banachal. So, that's how I'll do the Vav conversive translation there. So, the avdei Yitzchak. So here we have another construct chain. And the word that's in the absolute, the last word, is definite because it's a name, Yitzchak, which means that the construct words, in this case just one, must have the in them to sound correct in English. Right? That's what the text is wanting to tell us. It's definite. The servants of Yitzchak, Yachpavu, they dug the well. Where? Banachal, at the wadi. Vayimseu sham be'er mayim chayim. Then they found there, be'er mayim chayim. This is a really great thing. They found there a well of mayim, of waters. What kind of waters? So this is not construct. Don't get confused. This is just noun form. And here's chayim is functioning adjectively. Living, alive. Living waters. Right? Very nice. They found the living waters there. Baruch Hashem. And yeah, that's of course the importance of the living waters is so that the shepherds can't be complaining that it's coming from somewhere else, right? It's a constant source. It's from a deep underground reservoir, probably something like this. And also, I've made it in yellow because, of course, Mayim Chaim for us today now has become kind of a spiritual term. Like it makes us think, the living waters, right? Well, what are those living waters? And and you can have the connection. This is the well. You can, of course, make a nice connection to Basot Yochanan, right, where Yeshua is speaking with a Samaritan woman, and he tells her, like, look, he tells her, if you knew with whom you were speaking, you would have asked him, and he would have given you. In the Greek, it says hudontes zontos, right? Literally living waters, which is interesting. It becomes so super spiritualized, even in English now. Living waters, living waters ministries. And if that's the name of your ministry, I'm not picking it. I'm just saying, like, the influence of the Hebrew into the Greek on the spiritual level, the metaphor has impacted English and other languages today, right? But they miss that there's also a very common, it meant spring water, right? That's why the Samaritan woman seems kind of like an idiot if you're looking at things all super spiritual. He says, I would have given you spring water, right? And she says, where is this other spring water? The one that never will run out, etc., right? And so he does this a lot of times on purpose, right? Like when he's speaking with Nicodemus, right? And he says, like, a man must be born, and the Greek captures it this way, anothen, right? Like, and then Nicodemus is like, can a man go back into his mother, right? When he's old, and be born. And so Yeshua is doing the same thing to him. I think he's actually speaking Greek to that guy. I think he was a Hellenized Jew. A lot of this happened with many Jews back then. They were Hellenized. They made a lot of money outside of Israel, and then they immigrated back, right, to Israel. Which reminds me of an Israeli joke. So there's always, if you've ever lived in Israel, there's kind of a dry humor. Yeah, sometimes. I love it though, but it's the wit. And so there's a joke. It says, how do you get wealthy in Israel, right? Or in the land, they say, ha'aretz. And then the answer is, first get wealthy, and then make aliyah. The idea is that it's kind of hard to make it in the land, especially if you're from a Western, first world nation, right? So you first get wealthy and then you move there. That's how you get wealthy in the land of Israel. But anyway, so he's messing with Nicodemus, and he's like, you know, anothen. This word means two things in Greek, right? It means again, but it also means from above, right? From on high, yeah, anothen. And so this is what convinced me that he's probably speaking to him in Greek, because this doesn't work in Hebrew or in Aramaic. There's not a word that means both again and from above. Right? It just doesn't work out. And so, but it does. The pun does work in Greek, right? So I think in that moment, Yeshua was actually speaking to him in Greek, right? He's like, of course he can speak Greek too, right? If you've ever seen the Passion of the Christ, did you see where Pontius Pilate is talking to him in Aramaic, and Yeshua answers him in Latin? Right? It's kind of cool. It's cool. You have to listen, right? Because it's just subtitled in English or whatever. But you listen. So he's really surprised because nobody bothered to learn Latin. Greek and Aramaic were the international languages of the time, right? If you went to the east, it was more Aramaic. If you went to the west, it was more Greek, right? The Jews, for example, in Alexandria spoke Greek, but the Jews in Arabia spoke Aramaic predominantly, right? And so it's just kind of neat thing. So anyway, bringing it all back. So that's why it's so funny to me today when people say, like, you must be born again, because they're making the same mistake that Nicodemus made, right? Yeshua's not saying be born again. He says born from above. And he goes on to say he who's born of above is born of his spiritual things, right? He who's of the world, i.e. of the earth, i.e. down below, is of earthly things, right? So, but yet people still say born again. No, that's not the right phrase, guys. It's born from above, right? Born from above. The born again was the way that Nicodemus misunderstood, you see? So, yeah, and that's why you can't keep being born again, because you're born from above. Once you're born from above, that's it. The change has happened. You're from above, right? And you're on the right track to be on the derech. Yeah, so now here I have 18 to 19, but I'm unsure if I'm thinking, does the parashah actually? Oh, anyway, so with the living waters, you can do a lot with that too, right? That's a nice connection. But it also just means spring water, right? So it means both things. There's also teachings, from the sages that if you, for example, have a good teaching, right? There's this teaching that like Torah is the mayim, right? Is the living water, the mayim chayim, and that a good rabbi or even Moshe Rabbeinu, for example, would be a well or the source, right? And so there's actually a nice way of looking at this, that Yeshua is actually relating to this rabbinic tradition, right? This idea that he's like, I'm the rabbi that you should be listening to. He's saying, I'm the source you should be listening to, not these others. Yeah. So yeah. Anyway, I won't stick on that too much. There's a lot that we can do about that. It's very, very deep. The contrary is true. Poisoned waters means heresy, like bad teaching, right? Like somebody teaching you that you should say God's name a lot, the Yod He, Waw He, right? That you should make His name common by using it a lot, when really we should not, right? We're not supposed to pronounce the divine name. Only one person's supposed to say it, the Kohen HaGadol, on the holiest day of the year, in the holiest place, Jerusalem, right? And at the right time, yeah? So, continuing on. Okay, looks like my animation didn't quite work out how I planned, so you can see the blocks where something will be. But, okay. Verse 20. Vayarivu ro'ei gra im ro'ei Yitzchak lebo lanu hamayim. Okay, jerks. All right, so then we have a construct chain here, the ro'ei gra, So this Gerar is the place, so it's definite, so we have to say the, right? So the shepherds of Gerar. Grieve means to have a quarrel, right? So the shepherds of Gerar quarreled with Ro'ei Yitzchak, another construct chain, with the shepherds of Yitzchak. Right? Lemo saying, Lanu Homayim. Lanu means to us, right? To us is the water. Literally, the water's ours. It's ours. Vayikra Shem HaBe'er Isaac. Ki hit asaku imo. Okay. So he called, meaning Yitzchak, Shem HaBe'er. Okay, so we have another construct chain here. Shem HaBe'er. So since it's Ha Be'er, that's how we know that the last word, the one in the absolute, is definite. It's not any old Be'er, it's the Be'er, the well. So we have to say the over here. So the Shem, the name of the well, Isaac, that's what he called it. Ki hit asaku imo, because they it's like they contended with him. They it can mean oppressed, right? Although usually we'd expect a sheen for that, but sometimes sheen and seen get mixed up. So let's look at Isaac. Let's talk about this word just a little bit. Ibn Ezra points out that this root does not occur anywhere else in the Tanakh. The Isaac with the scene like that, right? And he goes on to say, fortunately, our tradition explains it to mean contention. Yeah, but it is interesting. If it were Isaac, it would mean something like oppression, right? Which is kind of what they're doing to him. They're really oppressing him. Help, help, I'm being oppressed. Okay, all right. And yeah, let's continue on to verse Kaf Aleph. Vayachpru be'er acheret. Vayarivu gam aleha. Goodness, they just won't let up. So then they dug a be'er acheret. So this is from Acher, you should recognize it. A different well, another well. Vayarivu, and they, it's still the Ro'ei Gerar, and they quarreled gam also aleha, about it. Literally over it, right? Not like they're standing over the well about to fall in, but concerning it. Vayikra Shema Sitna. So he called Shema. See, you see, we have our pronominal suffix there. Should be, if you haven't memorized them yet, do it. With the hey, with the mapik, that means it's an aspirated hey. Shema, right? The hey, you can hear it. It's not just there to be an ah sound, it's heard, right? Its name, feminine, because we're talking about the be'er, Sitna. Sitna's the name. Sitna's kind of interesting. And there's some dispute over what this really means, right? So Rashi claims it means something like annoyance, right? An annoyance. Right? I sure would be annoyed if I were Yitzchak Avinu at this time, wouldn't you? It's like enough is enough. Kimchi says it's from Satan, because you can sometimes substitute also, yeah, spellings and stuff. So Satan, which is like it's like to be in someone's way, right? Like that is really what it's saying. As if to say, they fight us any place we dig for water. Nachmanides comments that it's more like accusation, right? There's an accusation because they said, Lano Hamayim, the water's ours, right? And this is where we get the story that, oh, okay, they say it's coming from our wadi. You know, it's not Mayim Chaim, or if it is, it's because it's from our wadi, which is Mayim Chaim. So you're taking from ours, right? This continual flow, right? It's not just a system. And Nachmanides makes his argument based on Ezra 4:6, how the same word is used, which says, V'malchut Achashverosh bitchilat malchuto. Okay. And the kingdom of Achashverosh in the beginning of his reign, his kingdom, Katavu, they wrote Sitna al Yoshevei Yehuda v'Yerushalayim. They wrote a Sitna against the dwellers of Judah and Jerusalem, right? What did they write? What Sitna? Accusation, right? An accusation. A false accusation even, but nevertheless an accusation. Okay, so let's continue on with verse 22. This is chapter 26, verse 22. ויעתק משם ויחפור באר אחרת ולא רבו עליה. Okay, great. Now it's getting better. So he continued on, misham, from there. You could have said min sham if you wanted to. Vayachpor, and he dug be'er acheret, another well. Velo ravu aleha, but they did not quarrel about it. Vayikra, so he called Shema, her name, like its name, pronominal suffix, v'chavot, wide open spaces, like the Dixie Chicks. So he called it wideness, like widths. The chavot is like wide open places, right? It's like wide space. It's the opposite of being confined. Vayomer, because he said, Ki ata hirchiv Adonai lanu ufarinu va'aretz. And he said, Ki, because ata now, hirchiv Adonai. Adonai has hirchiv. So remember, when you have three root letters in the verb, and you see the yod before the third root letter, and also in some forms you have the hey at the beginning. Right? I don't want to get into all that. This is the perfect form, so we have it. This tells you it's the he field binyan, which means whatever you learn the meaning of that root to mean in kal, oftentimes, like more than 80% of the time, it's a causative form, to cause that to happen, right? So for example, like shavar means to break, but hishbil means to cause to break, right? So gadal means to be great, higdil means to magnify, like to make great. Malach is to rule, himlich is to coronate, in other words, to make rule, right? To make as a king, right? From where we get melech. So hirchiv Adonai means Adonai has made wide, has made broad lano for us, right? He gave us broad spaces. Ufarinu, and he made us, this is from the word for to be fruitful, and he made us fruitful, va'aretz, in the land. And the reason there's no dagesh here, beit is a begad kafat letter. They lose the weak dagesh preceded by a vowel sound, and here we have the vowel sound in close proximity. So the weak dagesh goes bye-bye, leaves va'aretz. Now, Nachmanides is worth investigating here. I probably won't talk too much about it now, but Nachmanides talks about how the first two wells represented the first two temples which were destroyed, right? And destroyed by the Goyim, right? But the third temple, all the nations will help to build. So says Nachmanides, right? And he references Ezekiel 41:7, and he clues in. He uses a Talmudic rabbinical process known as Gezer Shava, right? And so that's where he sees similar words being used in other places. So he kind of cues in on the Chaba from the Ezekiel story there, right? That Hashem has granted us ample space to increase in the land. Again, he says that there's ample space from Hirchiv, so he's tying it again to Ezekiel, for all the Goyim will build the third temple and serve him together. Now he's referencing Zephaniah 3:9. So there's more. You might want to dig into Nachmanides if you're interested in third temple stuff. It's nice how this well is the one that is actually supposedly going to be peaceful, but he might just have it wrong on that. So that's the end of our third Aliyah. I hope that this is working out for you. Leave me a comment below. Please subscribe. I'd like to hear from more people. I've heard from a few. It's encouraging, and it will encourage me to keep making more of these videos. The more I hear from people, the more I'll actually make the videos. Okay? Have a great rest of the week.